question of how the Steadicam was invented is tied up with why it was invented. And why it was invented was because I wanted one. I didn't know what to call it, but I knew what I wanted. I wanted to be able to move the lens, to move my camera as if it was on wheels, but I wanted to be able to walk. I had a dolly, a big old heavy dolly, and it was a terrible nuisance for small film crews. We had to lift 200 pounds each, 4 of us, to get it on a truck. But I loved moving the camera. I loved the way it looked on screen. I loved the way it felt. I loved the 2-dimensional medium turning into a 3-dimensional medium. And so I was strongly motivated to find a way to disconnect the camera from the cameraman. Humans are always moving, you know. The way we hold the camera is, is terrible. We're holding it on the outside edge, so every move we make makes it move. And I learned early on it's the angular moves that hurt. You know, if I move up and down and keep the lens square, it doesn't show up unless there's a foreground object, right? But any angular move, particularly wide angle, is extremely annoying. So I went notoriously, I've told this story many times, but it's true. I went into a motel for a week, sequestered myself, ran around the motel just trying balancing broomsticks and things, convulsing the maids who thought I was a very eccentric character, to try and figure out what could this thing be if it was light. You know, what's the lightest, smallest it could be? How could it be held up and floated? How, you know? And I came out of the motel a week later with a sketch of the object. And I had to make an enormous compromise, which was the lens. I wanted to go from floor to ceiling. Who wouldn't, you know? But the truth of the matter is 95% of shots are between the waist and over the head. And if I restricted it to that boom range, that is what the ultimate Steadicam did. When I got to shoot The Shining and The Kid and so on, we figured out low mode, where you stop, shut down, stick the lens down low, and now you shoot from knee to a little above the waist. There are these 2 ranges of height. And that has served us now for what, 35 years? It turns out that Steve, at 15, Steve Tiffin, the president and CEO of Tiffin, at 15 had put on a Steadicam during one of these camera shows in England. And I was able to dig up the photographs and show them to him. And he sort of always had a Jones for the Steadicam. So, and they have been a spectacular licensee for me because they support all these technical advances and they support advancing the gear. And that's a big commitment. Here's the original so-called sled. My old World War II Arri. This was an Africa Corps Arri. The original green paint can still be seen. OD paint underneath the black paint, right? Except that we had to bore a hole in my precious camera to stick a fiber optic viewfinder in because there was no video assist when we did this. So the only way to see it was at the end of this 6-foot pipe of light, right? So I'm wearing a headband, this fiber optic on one eye, this thing floating on that arm, running down the steps of the Philly Art Museum, chasing my then girlfriend, now wife Ellen, which incidentally, that shot was seen by the guy who did Rocky, who called us up and said, hey, where was that steps and how did you do that? And that's why that ended up in Rocky. So here's the vest, here's the arm. This has become a really high-tech machine. Under the Tiffin auspices, we invented an entirely new form of arm, something I was totally incapable of when I was a young guy, but over the years I've learned a lot of this stuff. So this is the subject of a new patent. And I have to say, if I had had this arm in the era of some of my earliest films, oh my God, what I could have done. If you look in close, right in here, look at this. This is a strange phenomenon because there's a little crankshaft in motion there, actually moving the spring termination as the arm goes up and down. This could be a little esoteric for you guys, but what the hell? You know? And so you have the freedom to shoot 570 degrees around, not even moving your feet, and throughout this range of lens heights, and with a really precise control over where the lens ends up, you know? And you're directing something that literally acts like it's weightless. And in terms of pan, tilt, roll, etc., you've got it controlled completely. So in the broadest sense, the word invention means the act of creating something that wasn't done before that somebody wants. And yes, you could apply that to cinematography. It's a little bit of a stretch, but you know what? The job of cinematographer, which some of us feel is being undercut by how easy it is and by that any kid can go out and fire up a Canon camera and shoot at 12,000 ASA and so on. But in point of fact, what makes a scene worth watching and what makes the lighting good is an act of judgment using whatever tools you've got. It doesn't matter if they're practicals in the sense of, you know, a camera that can see like daylight in the city street, or if you're moving around brute arcs, you know. The instruments somehow are whatever the instruments are at the given time. It's the eye. It's what cinematographers bring to this picture, which is causing something to look in a way that's appropriate. You know, I love the more democratic description of cinematographer. It's an art accessible to more people because the tools are available to everybody. But to be great is just as tough as it ever was. To make a movie, a film, a video, whatever that's worth looking at, that's tough. You know? It hasn't gotten any easier. The fact that cameras are small is a huge bit of good luck for me because, first of all, as I approach my 70th year in a few years, you know, the idea of lugging around an IMAX camera is less enthralling than it used to be, you know. That's a lot of work, right? And the newer Steadicams that Tiffin is making are smaller and slicker, but they're true Steadicams. They have arms that do this wonderful job. They have all the gear that makes something a true Steadicam, except that the premise, the weight, starts out being less. So you can use them all day. You can literally shoot indefinitely, but they deliver shots that are every bit as stable as here. Wait a minute, I'll find you an example here. Just wait. This is my favorite Steadicam of all. This is one called the Merlin. And the Merlin works with cameras that weigh between ½ a pound and 6 pounds, right? This is now about 2 or 3 years old, but look at this. Here's my 3-ounce iPhone on the Merlin, right? And the Merlin is adjustable, precisely adjustable for balance, right? So I can set it up to be level or slightly tilted down or whatever I want. And you know, you're completely disconnected from the camera. This is exactly what I started to do, you know, 37 years ago. It's just a smaller form of it, right? And like the big Steadicam, you can adjust it to hang level. You can pan and tilt. But look at this, with a camera that weighs 3 ounces,